Welcome to Kitchen Conversations. I'm your host, I'm Andrea, and we're recording this live in the secret kitchen. So my guest today, you're laughing, my guest today is the one and only Flora Higgins. I know you as a lady of literature, good alliteration there, right?
Yes,
but
lady of literature.
Today you are a lady of sourdough bread.
Yes, I am.
Proving that everyone has a second life that we don't always know about. Right? So let's get right into it. I know later on we're going to do some tasting, but tell me about your bread experience.
Oh.
Because you've been doing this for a while.
Many years.
Many years.
Let's see, I'm about 20 years older than my son, and he was about 15 when he called me up to tell me, Mom, your potato bread won first prize at the county fair. And this was before we had any of these phones, so he had to call the restaurant. He was taking care of the babies, so he knew where to get in touch with me. And the restaurant lady had to come find me and tell me that I had won first prize with my potato bread.
So wait, first prize where?
County fair.
County fair, okay.
I think all my prizes are from the county fairs.
Okay.
And Teddy had been reading a novel about one of the world wars.
One of the world wars, there's only two.
And they were eating potato bread, so he suggested I make potato bread, so I did.
Did you have a recipe? Did you?
Yes, I had a recipe.
Okay.
I had a recipe.
And that won
first prize.
First prize. So that was your first entree into the bread making. And then what?
And then
first, congrats on winning.
Oh, yeah, should I show the book?
Yes, Flora has brought some pretty amazing things here.
So I got into making bread.
Turn that around so the camera can see that.
Don't go away.
You're good.
You see that?
Look at that. Now, clearly that has been well used. Amazing.
And while I was reading and making other kinds of bread, I came across a page that said sourdough bread.
You should see all the grease stains and the
Yeah,
marks
look at all
on
the
this book.
spots, and the thing is falling apart. This is bad shape. And so
here, you know what? Put that
turned to
down right here
sourdough
so
bread.
it's kind of out of...
I had never heard of sourdough. Maybe
Nobody probably heard
maybe
of it.
reading a novel from the West or something, I thought, well, that sounds interesting. And the first thing you do when you make sourdough bread is you take a cup of milk and a cup of flour and leave it somewhere for 24 hours, which of course goes against everything your mother ever taught you about
leaving
milk
stuff
spoiling.
out.
Well,
Yes.
that's the point. You want it to spoil.
That's right.
And if you have been making bread, all the little yeast guys are floating around, and they will fall into this sourdough starter.
Here, you know what? Let's
And
put
I've
that
had
on the
starters
table so it doesn't...
that lasted for many years. And sometimes you get too much starter because you run amiss of making enough stuff, and it keeps in the freezer. So
Oh, I didn't know that you could
it
freeze
keeps
your
in the
starter.
freezer,
Okay.
and it eventually.
Okay.
Once you get a good starter, it's almost impossible to discourage it, although I try. And it does need fed. Oh, I forgot. At one point, do you remember the Women's Exchange in Little Silver?
Yes, I do.
I was selling my starter there. And so people bought it and liked it. Then the owner came up to me and said, well, there's a state ruling now. We have to inspect your kitchen. Okay, no more selling.
Well, right, because technically you have to have a commercial kitchen,
That's
not
right,
a home
that's
kitchen.
right. But I stopped making it for a while, and that starter I sent up to my niece's first husband in Vermont, and he kept it for a long time. So
it just starter just hangs out. Okay. But then obviously you got back into bread making.
Oh, yes, I made a lot of different breads. I made whole wheat bread, rye bread.
Oh, wow.
These are some of the breads I have gotten prizes
So, yeah,
for.
Flora has won many awards. Yeah, Jim, get a nice...
Yes, I will.
That's a
Hold
nice...
that tight.
Yeah, hold that for the camera.
Yeah.
That's fantastic, Flora.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And these were all at county fairs?
All at county fairs, some Ocean, some Monmouth. And this is my almost favorite picture because it's taken when we owned a small farm, and I love that farm and the horses and
Where
all.
was it?
Coltsneck.
Oh, in Cold Snack.
And you
Okay.
see what the bread is sitting on?
It looks like a.
That's a piece of wood.
Okay.
My husband had been a drill instructor in the United States Marine Corps, and he made that, I'll show it to you again, he made that cutting board for me out of an ammunition packing case.
Well, nobody else has one of those.
Nobody else does.
So what was it about making bread that just spoke to you that you loved it?
If I want a good loaf of bread, I'll go to a bakery. It's not to get it, it's to do it.
Yes. Oh my God, I feel that way too. The process. There's something about the process.
Have you made bread?
I've been making bread. I don't make sourdough bread, but I make cinnamon raisin bread. I make everything bagel bread, olive bread. But there is something about
Kneading it.
the doing of it, the process. And I
Yes.
find it, I'm going to use the word therapeutic.
Almost therapeutic. It's soothing.
It's soothing, it's relaxing, and I just find that you're taking the most humble of ingredients, right? Water, flour,
water, and yeast.
It's nothing, and you're turning it into the most delicious thing ever.
Yeah.
And then for me too, the joy, part of the joy is sharing it,
Yeah.
It's not fun to say, well, I have 50 loaves of bread in my freezer and hoarding it. No, for me, the joy is doing it and then sharing it.
You said you made some kind of cinnamon bread?
Cinnamon raisin bread. Yeah, that's delicious. I was always a baker, but then we had the pandemic and we couldn't go anywhere, and I found myself baking bread every day because I had never worked with yeast.
Oh, I was going to ask if that was a yeast bread.
Well, now, so I hadn't worked with yeast before, and it felt mysterious to me, and I had some major failures. So I was home. Where was I going? So I just baked every day, and would give it away, and then finally it kicked in, and I said, yes, this is how you do it, and then I haven't stopped yet.
Yes. As I look over the recipes here, I realize, well, they say if you can read, you can cook. But you have to experience making bread before you're any good at it, don't you think?
Yeah, I do.
Yeast bread.
I agree with you. It's not that it's difficult.
Like rise until double. What the hell does
What
that
does
mean?
that mean? Double what?
Cook until done.
Yeah.
So you have to experience it, like that young man who just lost at tennis. He's a very good tennis player, but he has not had the experience of a 5-set game in Paris. Experience. Like, I knew I'd find a way to work literature into this. Like the wife of Bath, she had 5 husbands. And she says, what does the church...
Not at the same time.
No, not at the same time. What does the church know about being married? I know about being married. So that was in Chaucer's
Still true to this day.
Canterbury's Tale.
But with bread and anything that you're baking or cooking, I feel like you have to have had failures to understand.
Yes.
Oh, so that's what it
Yes.
means to overcook the bread.
Oh,
Or that's what it means.
do not
to-
overcook.
Yeah. Or that's what it means. What happens if I add too much of this? Or I omitted the whatever. Oh, that's why my yeast was old, and my yeast wasn't alive. So yeah, you have to have a lot of failures to get it.
Oh, my dear husband. When he was in the Marine Corps, I lived with him down there at Paris Island, and he came home every other day and every other weekend. And I used to like to cook for him. So I was going to make biscuits. Well, I didn't happen to have any baking powder, so I just substituted baking soda. My poor husband.
You don't do that, do you?
No, that's one thing.
But you learned.
I learned. And one of the funniest directions I ever read in a recipe is shut oven door.
Shut oven door. You wouldn't think that would have to be a direction.
Like remove baby before folding stroller. I like that one
Yeah,
too.
well, apparently when I look at a lot of recipes, and it sounds so fundamental, this information, but I guess if you've never cooked or done, stir with a, stir or, you have to be very
How
specific.
about add 7 eggs?
Yeah, but crack them first.
Yeah, crack them.
And don't add the shells. Yeah.
Isn't Audrey Hepburn in some movie where she had to learn that you don't put the whole egg in?
Yeah, you got to crack the egg first. So what is sourdough still your most favorite bread to bake?
No, because when I was at home, before I went to work full time, but sourdough requires, right, the day before you have to set it aside until it doubles, whatever that means.
Right.
It does give you a range of hours, like 2 to 5 hours.
That's another thing. Yeah, yeah. Anywhere from X to X. There's a lot of judgment. Yeah.
250 to 400 degrees. And you have to keep an eye on it, and it takes a 2-day process. So most of the time when I bake now, I bake just yeast breads, but not sourdough breads.
So what kind of breads are you baking?
Oh, I love to make whole wheat bread. Mm-hmm. I've thought of taking it to Delicious Orchards with a challenge.
Really?
Yeah.
Delicious Orchards. That's the ultimate.
It's like a museum of food, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh God, what a great way to put it. It is a museum of food, a museum of good food. If you've never been to Delicious Orchards, yeah. What else do you bake besides bread? Because I feel like when you're a baker, you're baking all kinds of things.
And Teddy likes it when I make cornmeal muffins.
Oh, corn! Yeah, I love things that have to do with cornmeal.
Oh, one thing, I did want to talk more about sourdough.
Yeah.
There's a recipe in this book for sourdough English muffins.
Probably delicious.
They are. And it's almost easier to make than the bread.
Really?
And you have to have a tuna fish can. I use
for this. Okay, I
cut them.
Totally get that. Yep.
You have to bake them in a frying pan a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So you don't have to bake them in the oven. You can just put them in in a cast iron skillet.
I forget exactly. They're very easy to make.
Because I've seen people who make English muffins and they just get out their cast iron skillet and they just basically are frying it a little bit on each side.
Yes, that's what you do with the sourdough ones.
Okay, that is easy because you don't even need an oven.
I like Thomas's English muffins, so I have a lot of bags, say Thomas. And so when I gave my granddaughter 4 of my sourdough English muffins, I put them in that bag. She says, Grandma. I say, I know, but I made these and you can taste the sourdough in them.
Do they have the nooks and crannies?
Yes, they do.
See, that's nice. That is nice.
And as I say, they're actually easier to make than the bread.
What is something that you've wanted to bake that you've not done yet?
I did one a long, long time ago, but it was very hard, a challah.
I've never done that either. That's on my list.
I can't even braid my hair, let alone when I had long hair. But I did make one once, and I'd like to try that again. I think I will.
I love the look of anything the bread that's been braided.
Yeah.
There is just something very elegant about it. That's on my bucket list for baking. I do want to bake challah.
We could have a challah bread derby.
We could. That would be nice. Because that's basically just a very enriched egg bread. And I've even seen recipes for challah for no-knead bread. But there's so many recipes. I am determined to make challah at some point.
Let's do it by the 4th of July.
Okay, fair enough. We'll document our challah making.
Yes.
Because,
yes.
I mean, challah is, that's delicious. Probably, I'm going to say for me, that is my number one favorite tasting bread.
Oh, I love challah bread, yeah. There's
French
sweetness
toast, just eat it right out of the bag.
This sourdough bread that I brought today,
We're going to get some tasting in later.
I cut it in slices, and I freeze maybe half the loaf in slices, and I give half the loaf away, and I use the other half. But it goes right from the freezer to the toaster, and it makes lovely toast. Smells good, too. Little butter, very good.
So, I feel like that's a really good tip for bread makers, and I do the same, is I slice it, and I freeze it sliced, and then because I just want one piece of bread, one piece of toast, or maybe I want 2 pieces and I just take them out, put it right in the
Yes.
toaster. Otherwise, you've got this great big loaf of
Breakfast,
bread.
lunch, and dinner bread.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
put it in the freezer.
Yeah, so and there's no preservatives in homemade bread, so you do want to keep it nice and fresh, and putting it in the freezer is the way to go. You know what? We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, guess what? We're going to be doing some tasting of Flora's sourdough bread. Can't wait for that. All right, we'll be right back.
Go.
Okay, so welcome back to Kitchen Conversations. I'm here with Flora Higgins, and we are joined by her beautiful loaf of sourdough bread. It's absolutely beautiful. You can really smell the tang already. So, what do you want to tell us?
The proof is in the pudding. Let's eat.
Let's eat. Okay, come move in a little bit closer.
I'm going to have to stand up to slice
Oh,
it.
you're going to, okay, all right.
Ready to slice?
Yes,
Okay.
go ahead.
Hold your tea. Oh, your knives are sharper than mine. I'm going for the middle because that's where
All
the
right, you know
slices
what?
are bigger.
Let's show the camera.
Yes.
That is beautiful. That's what we aspire to when we make sourdough bread. Looks great. You know, the thing I love about sourdough bread is, you know, it just has that unmistakable, that scent. Okay, thank you so much.
Do you want a piece?
Oh, of course.
But we'll get Jim a piece later. The cameraman eats last. Sorry,
Okay.
cameraman.
There.
There we go. Okay, we'll leave this so that everybody can see. There you go. So this is beautiful. The scent of it. It's got a really nice
In the
crumb.
toaster would be really nice.
Oh, I'm sure. But look at this beautiful crust. Okay, I gotta taste it just. Well, first of all, thank you for bringing it.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
One of the fun parts about doing kitchen conversations is I always encourage my guests to bring something good, some treat. It's very good. It has that wonderful tang that I love.
The recipe actually takes a whole cup of starter, which most recipes don't, but sourdough recipe takes a cup.
It's delicious. It is delicious. Now, what is your, your advice to someone who has never made sourdough bread but wants to? Words of wisdom, since you've been doing this for a while, and obviously you've nailed it.
They say if you can read, you can cook, and that's not strictly true.
I agree. But why do you think that? I'll tell you why I think that.
Oh, because you'll see recipes that say rise until doubled.
What the hell does that mean?
Yeah. Cook until done. Just jump in and do it.
Yeah.
If you think you can, you can.
Do it.
Go for it. That's what I did.
I feel like you're gonna, if you've never done something before, and you know, for bread, I think there's an art and a science. I mean, the science is reading the recipe and putting the ingredients together. But the art might be, well, everyone's oven is different. So maybe it takes 15 minutes in my oven. Maybe it takes 18 minutes in your oven.
Exactly.
So your recipe is a guide.
Oh, and on a hot summer day, woof, that thing's going to rise.
Oh, there you go.
And on a coolish day, it's not take longer. But mistakes are lessons. Learn from them.
Yeah, well, that's the point. Learn from them. Yeah. That's right. I feel like you are going to make mistakes. You should make mistakes. And then you learn, and then you go on. And I feel like I've made every mistake when it came to bread making. Because it was lockdown. I had no one to talk to, really. And I read the recipe. Rise until double, or these, very vague terms. Double what? I didn't know. I didn't really get what that meant. And it's kind of a judgment call. Especially when, like we were saying before, it would say, let rise 2 to 4 hours. Well, there's one thing happens at 2 hours, something else happens at 3 hours, and something else again at 4 hours.
And
So
it
which
depends
is
on if it's 68 degrees or
Yes.
72 degrees.
Yes, so I never understood how much the weather affected bread making, how it rises, right? That's really true. And the kind of flour you're using, and is your
Yeah.
yeast fresh? If your bread isn't rising, maybe it's the problem with your yeast.
Yes, you have to watch the expiration date on the yeast.
So I keep my yeast in my freezer.
I keep mine in the fridge.
Well, that's good too. Basically, when you keep it cold, it's when you keep it in your pantry and it sits there for 3 years, and then today you decide to make bread, and your bread doesn't rise.
Yeah.
It's because your yeast expired 2 years ago. This is a great treat. So read the recipe, pay attention, but you know what? Put your own stamp on it and make a few mistakes along the way. At some point, you just have to dive in, right? For cooking anything, I feel. Now, do you also bake cakes and cookies and that sort of thing?
Cookies sometimes.
Strictly more of a bread person. So now let's come full circle to literature, because you and I do share a love of that. And Flora has a whole other life as a teacher of classic literature. So do you have a very favorite story or something that comes back to bread or involving bread?
A jug of wine, a loaf of bread, and thou beside me singing in the wilderness were paradise enough.
There you go.
When I remember who wrote it, I'll call you about 2 a.m.
Call me later, right? That's okay. It wasn't really a quiz.
But it's easily Googled.
Yes.
And it's a very famous saying about bread.
I mean, bread has factored in literature and eating and movies and, for a long time. The staff of life, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. When I was a kid growing up, bread was good. I mean, Wonder Bread was the rage. Bill's Body's 7 Ways and all that nonsense.
Yes, 12, I think.
12 ways, okay. In my case, maybe it was only 7. But, having good bread in the house was like a treat, because my mom didn't bake bread. I mean, no one I knew baked bread. And on a weekend, maybe going to like a special deli and getting a great loaf of rye bread. And everybody would fight for the end piece because it had the crust.
Wonderful, yeah.
Or the pumpernickel rye, the swirl. We all, we all wanted the crust. Keep the bread. We want the crust.
You have a lot of experience with short stories. Can you think of any that bread plays a role in?
Oh, God, not a one. No. Isn't that awful? But, no. Oh, my God. Pressure. Can you think of one? No. I'm sure they were out there. But, recently in my day job, my other job, we were talking about the Stephen Crane House, which is in Asbury Park. And for some reason, all of a sudden, I said, can anybody name a story by Stephen Crane? And someone said The Red Badge of Courage. But I didn't. Was that Stephen Crane?
Yes. But I think it's a novel, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, that's a novel, right. But I went right to the short story, The Open Boat.
I don't know that one.
And going back into high school, it was an example of tragic irony. The Open Boat by Stephen Crane. God knows where that reference came from while I'm eating sourdough bread talking to you. But see what bread does to you? Have some bread. I don't know. Literature and bread, you can't go wrong. Now you have a picture down there that we wanted to show.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Let's just show that so we don't forget, because this is really a beautiful, beautiful picture. Tell us what we're looking at.
Whole wheat.
Whole wheat.
No, it's in different size pans. That means it's sourdough.
Oh, sourdough. Okay.
Yes, the recipe calls, this is why I took the picture. The recipe calls for one size, and I only had one. So I found it didn't really make a lot of difference, except the smaller pan gave a plumper loaf.
Yeah.
And the larger pan gave a longer loaf. That's
Well,
logical.
they're still beautiful.
Yeah.
They really are. I mean, honestly, there's nothing like a great loaf of bread, and it's always a pleasure to speak to another bread baker.
And this one's going to go back and make, in the end is our beginning, and we will know the place for the first time. That's T.S. Eliot, who's always kind of tiresome, in my opinion. I'm going to make more potato bread for my son Teddy, because that's what started it all.
That sounds delicious. And so we have a challenge. We need to make challah bread.
Challah bread.
And I'm definitely gonna work on that.
Would you please pass me my cookbook?
Oh, all right, right. Is there a recipe in there that you wanted to
It's
show?
all breads.
Okay.
No, I didn't even think of it until we started talking. Thank you. Challah bread.
There's so many recipes for challah bread, but at the end of the day, it's a very enriched, buttery egg bread, kind of like a brioche, which is what makes it so exquisitely delicious.
What's the Italian one?
The Italian one.
Version of the sweet bread.
Well, let's see, I'm thinking brioche. I don't know.
Hi ho, it's off to the computer we go. There is no challah bread
All
in
right,
here.
so
Does it have another name?
challah? No, not really. We'll find it. We'll find it.
Everything's on the internet.
Yes, of course it is. Every recipe you could want. All right, we'll find a challah recipe and we'll
By
create
July
it.
4th. Mm-hmm. Oh, one other tip I would give to someone who wants to engage in sourdough baking. It's going to work better for you if you have 2 days where you can be mostly at home, because of the wide range of possibilities in rising until double and cook until done.
So maybe do it on a weekend.
Yeah,
Especially the first time. Like everything else, it's practice. Well, Flora, I'm so grateful that you came.
I am so grateful. I've had a wonderful time.
Came to my secret kitchen, and we got to chat about bread, one of our favorite subjects. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrea. And thank you,
Thanks
technical
for
crew.
tuning in. Yes, always thank you to Jim, our lights, camera, sound, everything else. We appreciate. He'll be getting his sourdough bread shortly. So we will see you next time on Kitchen Conversations. Please like and subscribe to Secret Kitchens of New Jersey. See you next time. Bye, everyone.